2014. Ebola sweeps throughout West Africa. ISIS emerges in Iraq and Syria. Cuba is opened up to Americans for the first time in several decades. Malaysia Flight 370 vanishes into thin air. The world lost Robin Williams, and the truth started to come out about Bill Cosby. Germany took home the World Cup. The Giants won their third World Series in 5 years. The Kings took their second Stanley Cup in 3 years. The Seahawks took home their first Super Bowl after destroying the great Peyton Manning and the Broncos. And the Spurs end LeBron's run with the Miami Heat with another NBA title. 12 Years a Slave wins Best Picture. Lorde wins Song of the Year with Royals. And everyone got soaked, promoting awareness for ALS. 2014 was an optimistic year for the theme park industry. Despite some bizarre incidents, all the major chains were looking forward to big innovations and expansions at home and abroad. And we even saw a small park make one of the greatest comebacks of all time. These are the most interesting theme park stories from 2014. Not every story from 2014 is top 10 worthy. Here are the best of the rest. And now for the top 10. March 19th, 2014. Yomiuri in Japan is unveiling their fourth coaster, a short, albeit extreme thrill ride called Twist Coaster Robin. It was manufactured by Sansei Yusoki, and if this looks a lot like an SNS El Loco model, that may be due to a merger between the two companies 2 years prior. With a little over 1,000 feet of track, a max height of 62.3 feet, and a top speed of 38.5 miles per hour. It doesn't sound all that impressive, but with a 93-degree beyond vertical drop, 2 inversions, and nearly pulling 4 Gs, Sansei put some bite into this coaster. At the cost of 450 million yen, or about 4.3 million US dollars, Yomiuri was hoping that their biggest investment into the park in 17 years would have a little better return than it did. On its opening day, a train slid down the lift hill and collided with a car in the station. Nobody was injured, but the ride was forced to be shut down. After going down the long road to get clearance to reopen the coaster, the park finally pulled the plug in 2016 and removed the ride from the park. Their 450 million yen investment would yield just 1 day of operation, but one heck of a weird story. Ninja is an aerodynamic suspended coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain that's operated at the park since 1988. It sends its riders down the side of a mountain in swinging cars, surrounded by trees. The trees add a lot to the coaster's atmosphere, but one day, they turned a normal ride for 22 passengers into a nightmare. July 7th, 2014, 6 o'clock p.m. A pine tree falls onto the track, unknown to ride operators, and the next train traversing the course collides with it, derailing the front car from the track and stalling the ride. 4 people were injured, all in the front car. 2 were taken to the hospital, but luckily there were no other injuries. Firefighters arrived on the scene to extract the 22 passengers, who were stuck on the ride for about 2 hours. After a thorough inspection by Cal OSHA, Ninja reopened just 12 days later, after the park had removed and trimmed down many of the trees that could cause a repeat of the incident on July 7th. However, this would not be the last time that firefighters needed to take a trip over to Magic Mountain in 2014. Colossus was a groundbreaking coaster when it opened at the park in 1978, claiming the title of the world's tallest and fastest wooden coaster. It was an icon for the park, and a lot of people were upset when Six Flags announced that 2014 would be its final year. They didn't reveal their intentions to convert it into an RMC hybrid right away, but it was pretty obvious to anyone in the coaster world paying attention to the other wooden coasters being converted around the chain. August 28th, 2014. 12 days after its closure, Magic Mountain unveiled their plans for Twisted Colossus, a dueling hybrid Mobius loop coaster, where riders would be able to experience both sides and interact with another train. Obviously, there was a lot of work to do, and you have to be careful around a wooden structure. September 8th, 2014, 1:30 p.m. A welder set the peak of the Colossus lift hill on fire, and the blaze lasted nearly 45 minutes before firefighters were able to put it out. When the smoke cleared, Colossus was left with a big chunk missing at its peak. It was a bizarre incident that I was able to witness myself, working right across the freeway from the park. But luckily, this did not hinder the project much, as the world-class Twisted Colossus was open for Memorial Day weekend 2015. July 19th, 2013. Rosa Esparza is thrown from the new Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas and is killed instantly. Although the ride itself was built by RMC, the trains were built by Gerstlauer, and the Esparza family made them a defendant in their lawsuit. February 18th, 2014. Six Flags, who was a defendant in their own case with the Esparza family, joins their lawsuit against Gerstlauer. Gerstlauer was surprised by the accusation that they were to blame for the accident, since Six Flags was intimately involved in designing the trains, and they tested and approved them. Gerstlauer even had photos of Six Flags engineers hanging upside down from a coaster train, just like the ones on New Texas Giant. March 6, 2014. Gerstlauer countersues Six Flags and says the chain was solely responsible for the accident, stating that Six Flags failed to exercise reasonable care in their hiring, training, and supervision of the ride operators, failing to use the emergency stop button once the employees observed the lap bar being too high. Also, they provided a test seat for Six Flags, but it was never used prior to the accident. Not much came of these lawsuits. Gerstlauer and Six Flags settled with the Esparza family later that year, but the bad blood between the two companies remains. They have not worked together since. July 14th, 2014. Energylandia opens its doors in Poland, a brand new amusement park that started off with 3 coasters. 4 more coasters would be added over the next 2 years. How did a new upstart park afford to do this? They were helped out by the European Union and its funding programs. They dispersed funds to each country in the Union, and Energylandia had to compete against other entrepreneurs to get a hold of the money allotted for Poland. The program was called Investment Under a High Innovation Potential in the years 2014 to 2020, and the money they received paid for half the park when it opened to guests in the summer of 2014. The park does not rely on EU money to expand, though they have received some since 2016, but the initial investment propelled the park to become a destination, on track to become the park with the most coasters in the world within the next few years. January 7th, 2014. News breaks from China that Universal filed a permit to build a park in Beijing, with work to begin at the end of the year and a price tag of $2 billion, and a targeted opening year of 2018. This was decided as Shanghai Disneyland was being built in preparation for its 2016 opening, as the 2 theme park giants saw China as the next big gold mine. While Shanghai Disneyland has enjoyed great success, drawing over 10 million guests a year, Universal Beijing was delayed to 2019, then 2020, and now is finally slated for a May 2021 opening. August 22nd, 2014. Carowinds unveils their new addition for the following year, a B&M Giga called Fury 325. This coaster would have the world's tallest drop off a lift hill, a record that still stands today. This was no huge surprise. Almost exactly a year earlier, Cedar Fair announced a multi-year expansion for Carowinds, with a price tag of over $50 million, and the need to hire nearly 300 new employees. This came right after Cedar Fair opened a satellite corporate office in Charlotte, and their sudden affinity for the area was largely driven by tax breaks that they were promised by Mecklenburg County. They were promised a refund of about 90% of their new property taxes that they would incur with their expansion, but figured the expansion would help out local restaurants and hotels, and that Cedar Fair would hire local companies to help with construction and design. The announcement of Fury 325 was the crown jewel of this expansion project, cementing Carowinds as a top-tier park in the chain. August 5th, 2014. Disney CEO Bob Iger announces that Star Wars would have a far greater presence in its theme parks in the future. This was no surprise. 2 years earlier, Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion and immediately started work on the next blockbuster Star Wars film, to be released in 2015. Iger was a big proponent of branded attractions, citing the fact that they had a much higher success rate with these brands that everyone knew, and stated, "When we grow Star Wars presence, which we will do significantly, you will see better bets being made that will pay off for us than were made in the past." This led to Galaxy's Edge, entire Star Wars themed areas at Disneyland and Hollywood Studios, opening in 2019 to rave reviews, and they're just getting started. July 8th, 2014. Universal Studios Florida opens their long-awaited expansion of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Diagon Alley. This would be a super detailed recreation of the land in the books and the movies, including a fire-breathing dragon, shops, restaurants, and a new indoor coaster called Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. This was introduced 4 years after the Wizarding World, and wasn't even located in the same park. To connect Diagon Alley and Universal Studios with the Wizarding World and Islands of Adventure, they also introduced the Hogwarts Express, the train that would shuttle passengers with a 2-park ticket or an annual pass. You could immerse yourself in this world, while changing parks, without ever breaking the theme. Universal had to strike a deal with Warner Brothers to use the franchise. But given this expansion, followed by new Wizarding Worlds in Japan and Hollywood, it's clear that they were thrilled with the results. February 4th, 2010. Six Flags announces the permanent closure of Kentucky Kingdom, a park acquired by their parent company of Premier Parks back in 1998. Their recent bankruptcy played a major factor, as well as the intense competition on either side, from Holiday World and Kings Island. And to top it all off, they were still suffering from the 2007 accident that saw a young girl have her feet severed on their drop tower. Six Flags harvested 2 of its coasters for their other parks. The Wild Mouse Roadrunner Express went to Six Flags New England as Gotham City Gauntlet, and the stand-up Chang went to Six Flags Great Adventure as Green Lantern. Six Flags traded forgiveness of their lease payments for their property rights, and just about everything left in the park, which now belonged to the Kentucky State Fair Board. A few months later, Ed Hart and other investors formed the Kentucky Kingdom Redevelopment Company to reopen the park. Their initial negotiations with the Kentucky State Fair Board fell through. In 2012, the Cook family, who owned Holiday World, set up a new company called Bluegrass Boardwalk Incorporated, and worked out a deal with the Kentucky State Board to reopen the park under the name Bluegrass Boardwalk for the 2013 season. This fell through quickly, and Ed Hart even criticized the Cook family of trying to eliminate its competition. Hart would not give up, and in August 2012, he and his Kentucky Kingdom Redevelopment Company planned to invest $50 million to reopen the park and another $70 million in the near future. The Kentucky Fair Board agreed to the lease, and they were officially on track for a 2014 opening. Construction began in the summer of 2013, which included a new major coaster, Lightning Run, a new drop tower called Fearfall, and some other flat rides, kids rides, and doubling the size of the water park. The park reopened on May 24, 2014, and was successful out of the gate, as they continued to expand year over year under Ed Hart's leadership, adding a new coaster every 2 to 3 years, and taking advantage of their centralized location in the country, making themselves a destination for thrill seekers also visiting Holiday World and Kings Island. If you want to see a more detailed version of the events of Kentucky Kingdom's Renaissance, check out Coaster Studios' documentary. Click the card or the link below. That's a wrap on 2014. Although some of the quirky stories are fun and interesting, I feel this year was defined by the biggest players looking towards the future. Some projects that materialized, and others that didn't, as well as Energylandia and Kentucky Kingdom taking very different paths to opening their gates in 2014, but both doing so with very bright futures ahead. Let me know what you thought of these stories, and what I may have missed in the year 2014. I can scour the web for stories for hours, but something may have slipped through. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're new here, please subscribe. It really helps me out, and you can check out all of my new content. Also be sure to check out my playlist for other years that I've covered in this series. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.